We live.
Looks like we live. Yo, what up? What up? Happy Monday, everybody. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. We in the building right now. We got a lot to talk about today. Happy New Year to everyone out there. It's gonna be the first show of 2025, man. So welcome to 2025. Servan's in the building early,
Yes,
and
sir.
yeah, man. I wanted to start off the show since we're in a new year. I want to acknowledge the albums that are going to be celebrating 20 years. Thumbs up in the chat. Let's get everybody in the room. We're also going to talk about Lil Baby's album, Wham, if you guys care about that. We're going to talk about Young Noble going at Nas and what that means, and should we even care? That's a very interesting thing, man. We got this group chat. Skip Bayless in a lawsuit. Y'all want to say that too? We got this group chat with myself, Servan, Ron, Super Duper, and of course Leroy Green, and we discussed a variety of things. And battling has been one of the topics that has been up there. And Leroy seems to believe that anybody can go challenge anybody at any given time. I do think that there is a pecking order to this, and we're going to speak to that. One of the things that Jay-Z said on one of his Hot 97 interviews when Jim Jones was going at him, I think this was around the Kingdom Come time. He was saying, the guy that's off the bench can't be screaming at the guy on the court scoring 40, talking about you garbage. I get it. It's like you don't have any classic albums. You talking about Jim Jones. You're not in anybody's top 10. And, there should be a committee, a hip hop committee, like DJs, MCs, personalities that sanction these things and say that, this person is able to go with that person, this person's not. I'm with that. Like, it makes sense. But we'll get into that a little bit more. We're going to talk about Drake's Fighting Irish record. And we're going to talk about a few other things as well, man. There was a list that came across my desk, too. It's the top 15 hip-hop songs of all time. And I want to talk about, what really makes a great all-time hip-hop song. I mean, I think we're in that period now where we can really start just opposing some of those things, because I saw the Sugar Hill Gang Rappers Delight at number 1, and it just shouldn't be at this point. I mean, I think hip-hop has grown enough where we can't just give those solidified spots to records just because they came first. But, we'll delve into that a little bit more. But first things first, man, let's talk about 2005. 20 years ago, man. I can't believe 2005 was 20 years ago.
Hell
So
of
we
a
have
year.
a graphic. Yeah, I see a graphic here. So some of the albums that came out that year, if you don't remember, Beanie Siegel's The Becoming. Was it The Becoming? Yeah. Beanie Siegel's The Becoming. You had Trill by Bun B. You had B by Common. You had The Carter 2. You had The Massacre, 50 Cent. You had Little Brother's Minstrel Show. You had Jeezy's Thug Motivation 101. Big album. The Game, the documentary, and you had Kanye West Late Registration, just to name a few. What a heavy year. I feel like when we talk about blockbuster releases en masse, I feel like this might have been one of the last years for that. Now, granted, we did have Good Kid, Mad City that kind of stopped the world when it dropped. But there are multiple ones here that stopped the world. The Massacre did $1 million in a week. Big album. 50 Cent's follow-up to Get Rich or Die Trying. Obviously, it's not Get Rich or Die Trying, but numbers-wise, it was very heavy. Common dropped B, which was his comeback album for many. And honestly, when you talk about the rebranding of Common and where Common is as not only as an MC, but as an artist and even an actor, it starts with this album. The Carter 2, I feel like, starts a big level of momentum going in Wayne's way to kind of put him in position to what he did on Dedication 2 and the Carter 3. Late Registration, I mean, superstar Ye, man. Ye was building onto his superstardom more and more. And this was a big leap in that direction. And The Game's documentary was just a big, big album. What are some of the albums that stood out in your mind from that era? Because I know this is your era too.
Yeah. I liked all these albums. That's first and foremost. But The Game documentary, man, that was explosive for me. We seen Game in the music videos back then with G Unit. We heard him a little bit on mixtapes, but we didn't really get an idea who he was as an artist and everything. And that coming out party for that was amazing, man. Documentary was well produced. We could notably say he was the guy that put the West Coast on his back at that time, and just,
Yeah.
man, it lit a fire over there. I would also say Late Registration. That was big as well. Um, but man, that Carter 2 is one that out of all of them, I played the Carter 2 the most.
Mm.
And I played the Massacre a lot, but my favorite out of all of them on there, it had to be the documentary, man. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Just uh,
Mm.
and in the end, the production, the introduction to Game as an artist, I think it was a great debut. Because a lot of these artists we was already familiar with. They're on a sophomore, well beyond their sophomore albums for at this point. So the Game with his debut, man, I think that was my favorite out the bunch. And like I said, I repeated 4 albums out of this. It was the Carter 2, the Massacre, Late Registration, and the Game. But man, that album was great. I mean, Bun B had a dope one on there. That too. When I'm looking at this, '05 is hard, but yeah, I would say if I had to pick one, my favorite one was the documentary.
And I'm sure we're missing some too. Somebody put in the most known unknown 3-6 Mafia. I'm sure there's a lot more that we're missing too. Thumbs up in the chat. I will say this, I wish that we were doing shows and doing podcasts in years like this, because the end of the year wrap up, and like giving out awards or whatever would have been very, very difficult for a year like this.
Sheesh, we're missing one. That's an
What,
important
Thug
one.
Motivation
Thug
101?
Motivation is an important one.
What
Was it?
is that? What's that?
That was '05. Thug Motivation.
Yeah, it's on there. Yeah, it's
Oh,
on
how
there.
did I miss that on there? Oh
Yeah,
my god.
it's
Yeah.
right below the Massacre. Yeah.
'05 was a great time for hip hop albums.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about debuts, now, granted, there were mixtapes and all that stuff out there. I mean, it's harder to have a more powerful debut than what Jeezy had and
Oh
what Game had. I mean, I think Jeezy, in my opinion, is still kind of living off of the momentum of that. That was a heavy one. I think the album of the year for me on this would have been Commons B. Probably no surprise for anybody who watches the show. I think what Kanye and Common were able to do in that time period, I think was something that was it was organic. Number one, it was pure hip hop. If anybody believes in those aesthetics, and we've had conversations about that too, but it was just a perfect marriage at the perfect time. It was something that Common needed. It was something that Kanye needed, and I do think that from top to bottom, it was probably the most difficult thing to do, because in hip hop and in music in general, I believe that coming with a great debut album, making great albums isn't easy, period. But I think it's a lot easier to do in your debut. You're able to talk about your whole life, your style, and everything about you is new to everybody. You know what I'm saying? So you have that level of newness that you can shine on and that you can ride on. And, even when you talk about collaborations, a lot of people are a lot more inclined to collaborate with newer artists who are supposed to be next up, because, people want to get on what's next. I think with B, I don't think we had ever seen anybody that season come with such a great album at that point in hip hop. And usually after your third, fourth album, you're kind of done. It's like you're not going to make your best album at album number 5. Like, that opportunity is over. And the fact that Common was able to do that, and he was able to get hungry again, if you will, after Electric Circus, which I like, by the way, but it wasn't well received by his fan base. And he realized that and understood that, and Kanye understood that too. And they went to the lab and they got to cooking. And I think the rollout for B was very understated too, utilizing the Dave Chappelle show. Going out there doing the food during the Dave Chappelle show, like records that no one heard. And then not only doing that, but actually using the Dave Chappelle version on the album. I love that. I think that's brilliant. I think that I mean, I've said the same thing about To Pimp a Butterfly when Kendrick actually used the live version of I instead of the recorded version. That was a brilliant move. That was the better version. Um, I think B is perfect top to bottom. The only song that I don't love on B is Testify, and Testify is a dope song. It's a storytelling record. So top to bottom, I would say B is my favorite, but it would be hard to say album of the year in that year based on how big these other records were and how quality these other records were on top of that. I think Late Registration gives a great argument for that. The documentary does, and so does Thug Motivation 101.
Yeah,
Um,
look at these albums, man. It's kind of like, man, we'll never get this again. You know, never.
Man, Max, what do you mean? B is not Common's best album? What is?
Yeah, man. When I'm looking at,
Do
all
tell.
right, this may be blasphemous to the South, but I'm gonna be honest. When Jeezy first came out, I didn't like Jeezy at first. Me
I didn't
personally.
like G's either.
I didn't like Jeezy at first. Jeezy grew on me, and then I caught up to the hype late, and I just been on Jeezy's music since. But when that album first dropped, I guess the impact for me wasn't the same. In which, like now, hindsight, I could be like, oh, man, that's massive. Damn, that's on there. But like when that first dropped, I wasn't on that type of stuff. I was listening to, you know, the niggas that was spitting for real. So like, the documentary was my stuff. The Massacre was my stuff. I mean, I love Beanie's album, but when I'm listening to Carter 2 or listening to Late Registration, like even Bun B had joints on there. Like those albums to me stood out more for me. And then, like I said, I was late to the Jeezy train. So, when I came around to listen to that stuff, I was like, damn, bro, I was missing out, but man, '05,
I,
that's great time for hip hop.
I love Like Water for Chocolate for the people in the chat, but Like Water for Chocolate is not a better album to be. It's just not.
No,
And I love Like Water for Chocolate. I mean, dope album. I think it actually aged very well. It gets better with time, but it's not better than B. Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says, B is so unique because, in my opinion, it's the most perfect album in hip hop history. It doesn't have any massive standout commercial hit songs. Right, but even with that being said, I feel like the versatility that we even saw on that album from Common, he does a record like The Corners, and then he goes into a record like Faithful. Then he makes a record like Go on there. Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't doing this on any other albums like that. And then he gives you like a street record in Shy City. And then he could close it out with It's Your World. Like, as much as I love Like Water for Chocolate, after Thelonious, and then it goes to the Big Payback or whatever, and then the regular Ghetto Heaven, I didn't really like either one of the Ghetto Heavens. It falls off a little bit. B doesn't fall off at all. Now, Like Water for Chocolate has some very strong moments. I think that Sixth Sense is one of the strongest moments, but end to end, it's not a better album to be. Shout out to Jay Short from the West Coast up in here. He says, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of hard for me to listen to the documentary now, only in hindsight, because I see the improvement Game has made as an MC. It's almost night and day. You know what? I'm glad you said that, Jay
I agree
Short.
with that.
I wasn't a big fan of the documentary back then because I wasn't a big fan of Game as an MC. And I think he constantly got better and better and better over time. And I applaud Game because Game is super dope as an MC now. He wasn't that on the documentary. You could tell he had a lot of help. It was all hands on deck, one of those situations to make a great album. So, yeah, for that reason, I would definitely put B over it if we were talking album of the year or whatever because of the MC. But those massive records are just massive records. But really, if we talk about who did all of those things, it'll probably be Late Registration.
It's kind of hands down, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think Gold Digger was a smash, and it was also a record that had substance. It was
Yeah,
a banger,
too, right?
huh?
Drive Slow, was that on there with Paul
Drive
Wall?
Slow's on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell this I talk about this all the time, man. Like, the College Dropout's a great, great, great album. It can only happen once. But this was more so about Kanye being a hybrid and being a producer that could bring all those things together. It really wasn't about Kanye being an MC per se. And I remember when I heard Diamonds for the first time, and he comes in there Close your eyes and imagine. Feel the magic. Vegas on acid. Seen through East St. Laurent glasses. I'm like, yo, this nigga's rapping different. Like you could hear, talk about improvement. You could hear the improvement and the difference between Kanye as an MC on College Dropout and on Late Registration. He's super comfortable. He's comfortable on Touch the Sky,
Yeah.
which debuted a lot of people to, brought a lot of people to Lupe Fiasco as well. He's comfortable on Touch the Sky. He's comfortable on Gold Digger. He's comfortable on Drive Slow. He's comfortable on Diamonds. I mean, Late Registration might take a back seat for a lot of people because of this, how great this man's individual catalog is. And I think it kind of gets lost in that. It's not, for some people, it's their favorite Kanye album, but it gets caught in the shuffle between the debut and the Superstar album, which would be Graduation. So it's like, it doesn't have the sales that Graduation had, and it doesn't have, I guess, the impact, if you will, that Graduation had, and it also doesn't have the impact that, you know, the College Dropout had, or the newness that College Dropout had, but it's just as good of an album. So it's a weird place that Late Registration's in. And you factor in the fact that he put it out and put it together at the same time he was putting together Beef for Commons. It's insane.
And you know, that's another thing. That's why I say Kanye had a hell of an album run all the way up until My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Straight
I
up.
mean, because a lot of people, you know, it was mixed reviews from what I remember on 808s and Heartbreaks. But when you go back and listen to it now with the Sound of Music that it had, you can look back at that hindsight and be like, you know, I may not have got it at first, but 808 and Heartbreak, that, you know, it was one
It
of those.
might be his most impactful album. If we really want to sit here and look at it, and we really want to dissect history and look at what happened after the fact, it could be his most impactful album.
Yeah,
Drake's whole career is based on that record, that album.
Yeah, hell of an album run. And then back to Jay Short's point, you know, I could see how you said he doesn't look back at listen back to the documentary because how game is improved, and he's right. I mean, because the Doctor's Advocate was probably his rawest effort, you know, no Dre production, and you know everybody was looking at him like, "What are you gonna do now?" And he delivered. But that the LAX album even was solid. Like Game got better with every album. You know, from
I
an
like
MC,
the Red album.
yeah,
I mean,
man.
the
So
documentary 2 and 2.5, like 1992, like Game got joints and he kept going. I wonder why Game kind of gets overlooked in that manner. I mean, because he's put in the work, he's improved, and it seemed like when he was coming out 20 years ago, they were all in on Game. Like, I don't understand how the momentum from, I guess, his team, if you will, or the debut team, I don't understand how the momentum kind of faltered off because his work ethic seems pretty great.
I think the thing with Game is just, you know, the antics outside of the music. You know, every time he drops an album, it's kind of still using that blueprint that 50 has, the controversy, potential beefs. And for some people that see it as not being organic, they may look at it like as corny. You know, I think that Game needs more credit on his albums and efforts as an MC, but I'm with the people that say that because sometimes it gets overshadowed when there's certain things that he do that overshadows the music and things that you say and everything. So it's kind of like, damn, man, like if only you didn't get in here and do these things, people will probably look at the music more and propel that. But he does have some good albums, and you know, aside from the documentary, you do have Devil's Advocate, you do have LAX, you do have Jesus Piece, you do have the Year of the Wolf, you have the Red album, you know, documentary too. It's so many projects within that is pretty good. But like I said, when he gets in these interviews and he say the things that he say and the things that he do, and it's kind of like it kind of make people be turned off from him and not want to listen to him. But man, that his albums, he has good albums, man. I can't deny that from him.
And, you know, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later because one of the things we had on the docket was the social media help artists or hinder certain artists. I think certain people, you know, if I'm being honest, I mean, it helps people reach their audience, but I do feel like some of the people from the older guard, if you will, like The Game, like T.I., I think the more that they were accessible to the public, it was more detrimental to them than it was beneficial. And that's unfortunate because I do feel like, and again, I'm one of those people that feels like we got to just look at the music. We don't know the person. And it's such an interesting dynamic because when you look at this music industry, they sell you on the individual just as much as they sell you on the music. The music's the product, but the individual's the product too. And so that's why on the other end of the spectrum, if one of your favorite artists got caught up in some shit or whatever, people are going to need hardcore evidence to even believe that. If that's their favorite artist and it's somebody they bought into all these years, like, nah, not him, not that, nah. But on the other side of it, if you don't like somebody, you're not going to like anything that they're doing. And you're going to be easy to dismiss any work that they're putting in. And I mean, again, I've said this on this show before. I feel like that's what has happened to T.I. I don't understand how people act like T.I. is not who he is or made what he's made and
Well,
has had the impact that he's had.
it's the same thing. It's like Ti turned it around, but it's like kind of the same thing. The things that start happening that was outside of the music, it started to make people not want to look at the artists at the way that they do and respect their music. You know, Ti was on top of the world, but translating into the social media world, and he had the thing with his daughter, and then certain things he was saying on social media, people were starting to kind of look at the OG like, hey, you kind of clowning yourself a little bit on here, and then a lot of people that are the judges of this on socials wasn't around to see his impact on socials. I mean, impact of in the music industry like that. They're coming
Right.
on and listen to what people tell them, but they wasn't around when he first dropped. These are the people that's driving the narratives on socials and stuff for the most part. So it's just like that, man. It's mostly the antics and things that's done outside of music that turns people off with not recognizing the amount of work they put into the music and stuff. Ti, he's turning around a little bit. He's not really kind of going out of his character on socials, but the stuff with Game has integrated into his music because now he goes and inserts himself in the beefs that has nothing to do with him. And we seen it with Meek. We seen recently with what he did with Rick Ross, with Eminem. And you just look at these things and be like, this stuff is not organic. Where is it coming from? And then you get on the Drink Champs and you say, well, Kanye did more for me than Dre did my whole career. Those type of things, people look at that. Like, Kanye is your man, and you leak a track about you talking about smashing Kim Kardashian, and then you link back up with Ye and you say something like, it's just so many things that you don't know what side Game is on. And it's just like, unfortunately, it's a trickle down because we see how Whack is on socials. And Whack may be loved, he may be hated, but it's just certain things that may turn people off from it. So unfortunately, his music gets overlooked due to those things because these days people will take that and just care about the individual and can't separate that from the music. And unfortunately, that's how that type of stuff happens.
Well, I mean, for the people that saying that T.I. doesn't have a classic album, I mean, like
No,
it or not, trap music is a classic album. Jay Short with the super chat says, I'm not gonna lie, I think the Auditorium is Common's best album. Wow. I think the beats are better than B,
he's my
and
favorite.
it has more dope songs. I know that people love Kanye, but it's just my opinion. I'm not gonna knock a man's opinion, but Jay Short, you're wrong. I would love to go track for track with that. We're talking
I love
about
Beat.
even the intro to B that they were using with Terrell Owens was in the commercial or whatever. The intro to B, then you're going into the corners, and then it goes to Go, and then it goes to Faithful, and then it goes to Testify. Like, I know this off
Yeah,
the
Beat
top of
was
my
structured
head. Like,
amazing.
and then it goes to Love Is. Like, nah, man, no. And I love Pete. I think they did a great job. But the standout records alone, I mean, there's no food on Auditorium. There's no It's Your World on the Auditorium. I mean, even the way Common's rhyming, it ain't even. If you want to say that you think Pete did a better production job, I disagree with that still. But that's more plausible than the other part because Common is a much better MC on B, and that's just. I mean, he's just smoking it on B. I don't want to get too deep into this because I know we got a couple other topics to go on, but Yeah, I mean, 2005 has some joints, and I think that the game is definitely slept on. Social media has affected that. I think that people need to somehow be able to separate the two, but I guess some people can't. It is what it is. I mean, that kind of brings me to somebody like Lil Baby, and we can kind of speak on this real quick and then go, to the Drake fighting Irish. But I've always thought that I've always thought that in that circle where it was Baby and Gunna, I always saw like the organic abilities in Gunna, and I thought Lil Baby was a little bit more hype. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. Lil Baby got a few songs here and there, but I do think that the hype for him was bigger than his talent. And I think that what is happening over the last couple of projects is just a result of that. I think sometimes when you hype up certain individuals more than what they can take on with their talent, it's inevitable. I think that we saw Gunna back against the wall, everything that was going on with the trial, and he was able to deliver with producers backing out on him. You know what I'm saying? No collaborators because people didn't want to collaborate like that. And people were open about the fact that they were not going to do songs with dude. And he was able to deliver. Now, I think that right there is somebody who's comfortable in their talent. And I don't know if it's one of those things where Lil Baby got propelled before he was really ready to be propelled to that level and kind of got caught in the hype and wasn't able to deliver like he needed to. But I'm not really surprised here. I mean, a lot of people are like, Lil Baby fell off. Is that it? Whatever. I do think that we are in the changing in the guards for many different crews. QC may be one of them. I think Griselda at this point, I mean, I think we've seen runs reach their height. Now, I'm not saying people can't make a comeback, but I think that it's wide open for another run to happen. Um, I do feel like Lil Baby was kind of QC's last hope, if you will, with the whole Migos thing happening the way it did, unfortunately. And yeah, this is where we're at. Now, as far as the album goes, I wish he would stop putting all these auto tune effects and all that stuff on his voice. I think that the record with Future and Thug is dope, but again,
I
that's a
agree.
cheat code. Future and Thug are always dope together, no matter if you're on the song or not. Like ask Drake,
The
that
anticipation to
D4L
hear
record,
it too is there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that D4L record, like Drake didn't even need to be on that record. Like whenever those guys get on there, they take over, and I felt like that with this song too because Lil Baby went first, and really you could really just cut his part out and start with Thug and then go into Futures. You know what I mean? Like he didn't even have to be on the song really. So, but I do have a problem with that song being number two. When you have to put a record like that as your second song on the album, you don't really have much. That record should be you. That second song, or that first full song, if you will, that should be you. We were just talking about opening songs on albums. Ambitions as a rider, New York State of Mind. Now, granted, we know Lil Baby's not those guys, but your first full song on the album is a statement. Whenever you have to have your first full song on the album be a collaboration, it's not a good sign for the album.
Well, here's my take on the Wham album. I listened to it, and there's some joints on there, but for the most part, one of my biggest highlights of the album is there's not a real standout. There's not one that's like it's undeniable who I see. The club's gonna play it all the time. The radio's gonna play it all the time. He just doesn't have those big records on here, and that's what I think that's missing. He's just coasting, and it kind of feels like an album that a person makes when they're trying to get out of a record deal. That's what the album seemed like. And again, to your point, I think he's victim of the QC fall off, man. QC is kind of like they had an amazing run, but when you're starting to look at all those artists that's on QC and, their trajectory, it's not looking good. I mean, you have the Migos who disbanded. I like Offset's last album, but, the success of them afterwards, is up for debate.
Well, they
You look,
haven't been the same since they sold to that Asian group or whatnot.
I thought they sold QC to Scooter Braun's company or Scooter Braun and them. I saw that's what I thought.
Well,
Like,
I thought Scooter Braun brokered the situation with that Asian company, I believe. But yeah, Scooter Braun's definitely involved.
so yeah, so you know, then you have the City Girls. You know, the City Girls to see what happened to them and how they fading out and going solo. That's another travesty to QC. Then you're looking at Lil Yachty. Lil Yachty's now more of outside of music production. He kind of podcast where he's like kind of one of those other ones that's successful, but it's like he's in his own space of what he does with that. Um,
I feel
and
like
then
he's really their last hope, and that's crazy to say.
Yeah, and then you got OG Mako, rest in peace. But that music
They
died
gave
out.
up on him though.
Yeah,
Like
the
they
flesh.
and rest in peace to him. But yeah, when he had that flesh eating disease or whatnot, they gave up on him.
And then you had them managing Cardi, and then I don't even think she's QC management no more. Don't quote me on that, but I don't know if she's still QC management anymore. But like I said, like that
She
roster,
claimed she never was. I
yeah,
remember her saying something like that. Yeah.
when you look at their roster, and then I guess what their new effort was with these new people, like they went and grabbed Glow's homegirl Gloss Up. She just got dropped. She was saying that they were saying her music's not it. It's just kind of like so I think what was missing from this Lil Baby album was really it just don't have the big hits. It don't have the big songs. It don't and that was one of the things I was a draw for Lil Baby on his other albums was he had those big hits. He had those ones that you hear on the radio, and then his collabs with other people, the features and everything. So I just think it's kind of cold for him, man. I think that's what it is. He needed hits, and
What did
that's
you think about the record with Glorilla?
I wanted to like it. I feel like Glorilla came in there and did exactly what she was supposed to do, but unfortunately, she did not save that song for him. And I think the only reason why is because I don't think the hook was strong enough.
Okay.
He tried to come with something that has but it's just the hook wasn't strong. I feel the same way about the 21 Savage record. Like I feel like that record didn't save it for him either. So it's like there's some joints on there that I like, but it's like for most part he's just coasting on it, man. It has no big records and it hit no peaks. It's just kind of like, damn, man, like I wanted it to be successful, him talking about it doing his media runs and stuff, but you know, it wasn't it wasn't good, man. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like
No.
yeah,
I hate to throw blame around, right? But I think that we always talk about artists and rappers and MCs or whatever need to step it up. I truly believe that the producers in hip hop right now need to really step it up. I don't think we have any real criteria for what we expect from a producer anymore. What makes a great hip hop producer? What's a producer's real role? Is it just sending somebody some beats, like you said? Like the hooks are terrible. Like who is helping out with these things? That's a producer's job, Like when the Neptunes was working with Snoop, they were helping with the hooks. You know what I'm saying? Like when you have even Swiss Beats, man, like Swiss Beats and DMX or whatever, you could tell that Swiss was involved in the full development of those records when it came down to it being a song. And what level of onus do we put on hip hop producers right now? Because even when we were talking about the producers of the year last year in our wonderful panel discussion. If you didn't get a chance to check it out on YouTube. But I was kind of disappointed in, I guess, our inability to be able to really pinpoint why a producer should be given a crown for the work that they did in that calendar year. It kind of seemed all over the place. Like, okay, well, this person made a lot of stuff, or this person has some hits, you know what I mean? Or this person had the biggest song this year, or this person made what, some feel is the best produced album. It's like, okay, well, what are the expectations of a producer and what does a producer really bring to the table? And it feels like when you look at Lil Baby, he needs that. He needs somebody that can pull it all together. And I don't feel like there's a producer currently right now, at least for the mainstream, that we can say can pull it all together and make the documentary or something like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, you how do you say that and you like, the run with Nas and Hit Boy? He has the
No, I
ability to,
think they did. Well, they found something. I
yeah.
thought that was
So we
dope.
can't say there's not any.
Oh,
There's
there are
producers.
some. And Hit Boy
Yeah.
is an album maker, and Hit Boy really impressed me with his ability to transition from a placement producer to one that really sat there and made albums from end to end. I'm not saying it ain't out there. It's just not out there enough.
Yeah, but to your point, you're right. You're right, Mark. Mike. I'm sorry. You're right, Mike.
Good.
You're right. The producers is important, man. We don't have a lot of producers that's in studio that's helping build these records, that's contributing to. Oh, you say it this way. You should do it this way. Like I like seeing that old Kanye documentary and how he's working with Jamie Foxx on that record.
Yeah.
I love seeing Fade to Black and seeing Jay in there with Timbaland. And like you just see certain things when people are talking about them being in the studio and the chemistry and how they made records. And now you just, oh nah, so and so just DM'd it to me. I went to the studio, got done. Like those
Exactly.
records are just Dropboxing it to me or just sending it to me. Whatever way they do it now, it's just like that is kind of one of those things that gradually started to ruin the sound of music for real because you're not getting that chemistry no more. You're not
Yeah.
getting the chemistry of what it is to make records. And I
People
know,
aren't working together,
yeah,
and we don't see the process because it probably is no process.
I mean, most of these artists that collaborate are not even in the studio together to do it either. And I think, that chemistry, that chemistry is a big thing, man. Like I know what it feels like to be in a record. I mean, be in a studio and there's a group effort and there's people there that is like, oh yeah, that's how. Like you get those are your first reactions you're gonna get to a record. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And you have people in there hold you accountable. Hey, nigga, that shit sucks. Go in there and write another verse. Like write this
Right.
shit over. That ain't it. Like there's certain like things that you get out of collaborating and being in there that I feel like that lacks in the game. The producer, the actual duties of a real producer has changed so bad that it reflected how this music output is now. And that's why certain projects are held so high in quality versus other ones. You could tell something that was, a group effort and they're working with each other and doing it. And then ones that are just like, some people have been able to strike, lightning with it and everything. But gradually, I feel like that's one of the biggest contributors to the quality of music right now, man, is
It's
the
and
producer.
no pun intended. There clearly was a lack of quality control on this Lil Baby album, and I think that when you have somebody who is your flagship artist, which he is at this moment, somebody in the chat said Atlanta ain't been the same since Takeoff died. It's true.
It's true.
With all of those things, on the table, you would think that there would be all hands on deck to, like you said, make sure this person who has this big name and who has this huge following makes the best project possible. I mean, when I look back on, I was watching that TLC biopic this weekend, just
Mhm.
randomly or whatever, and I was thinking about the Atlanta scene early on and how Southern Playalistic came together. Like, I listened to the song Southern Playalistic, and no disrespect, Dre and Big Boy are Dre and Big Boy. That song's not about them. That song is about that hook, that beat, and you could just tell that on that project, it was all hands on deck to make sure that these guys were the guys that put Atlanta on the map. And you would think that in QC, Atlanta in general, and with somebody like Lil Baby, who is such a huge name, that somebody would say, yo, it's going to be all hands on deck on this project to make sure that this project is as big as this artist is, right? Say, like we were talking about with the documentary, it was all hands on deck to make sure that the Games documentary was the biggest album that year. And at some point, somebody's going to have to do that. And any of these people who, claim to be the biggest artists of this time, going out here dropping lackluster efforts is just not going to get it. You know what I'm saying? And regardless if that person is a, super lyricist or whatever, you're a superstar. And if you're a superstar, you need that all hands on deck treatment. But that comes with a level of quality control too. Like you said, people in the room saying, yo, this record ain't good enough to make it on this album. And it's hard for me to believe that there were records that even got cut from this album, because if this is the best of the best, man, he just ain't going right now.
Yeah, it's like you could tell there wasn't too many hands on deck with this album as it should be. Lil Baby
Right.
is one of those artists I think that could benefit from that. I feel the
Yeah.
same way about the Baby, because I think the Baby actually can actually rap better than the Lil Baby, of
Yeah.
course.
For
I think the
sure.
Baby is one of those people that if he locked in with the right producer, he'll be back. There's certain artists that could really benefit from that. Being that there's no real artist development, that's a thing of the past.
Right.
But having that group effort, even if it's you're locking in with a producer and you're getting real feedback, you're getting real things of how a producer should produce. I think he could have really benefited from that. And unfortunately, it's seeming like he's phasing out, man. It's seeming like it's something that's going to the back, do the backside of things. And
Yeah.
to that point of somebody saying Atlanta hasn't been the same since Takeoff died. I mean, when we think about Atlanta artists, who's really came with something since then that's really like, am I missing out on something here? Because I
Nah,
think there's some facts to that, man.
it is. It is. I
Atlanta,
mean, and Rich
Atlanta
Homie
thing,
Quan died too.
yeah,
It's for that era of Atlanta rappers and the Atlanta scene, yeah, it's demoralizing. And I think with somebody like Takeoff, even though he wasn't the quote unquote biggest Migo, he was definitely the heart and soul of that
mm,
collective. And I've said this on the show before, on this channel before. One of the things that stood out to me about those QC compilation albums was that they made sure they spread out the Migos so much where they ended up having to fill in most of those songs on those albums. And the weaker moments on the albums were when the Migos weren't involved. I felt like QC didn't have much past the Migos anyway. You know what I mean? Like after you look past the Migos, what do you got? And that's where Lil Baby comes in at. And
I mean,
now,
you still had the City Girls. The City Girls was
right, right.
a lot of
City
noise.
Girls had their hits and they had their niche, but it wasn't exactly what the rest of QC was kind of doing. You know what I mean? Like they kind of had their thing. It was kind of like a bass movement type thing with them. Whereas, the rest of QC was more so trap, if you will. But yeah, I mean, this would have been the time for Lil Baby to really step up and not to say overtake anything, but understand that it's wide open, man. They need you. They need you to go out. The team needs you to go out there and put up 40 tonight. Can you do it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And he
And
can.
yeah, especially with the medium run he did, I was kind of just expecting better, man. I expected some bigger records, but it was mediocre. It was average, average at best. To start off 2025, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm disappointed in the album. It wasn't trash, but you know, it wasn't something that I'm ranting and raving about either, man. I just think it was all right. It was. I wish he just would have threw it out as a mixtape and then see what the reactions of that, and then really go make the album you're supposed to make.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of cold before that. We wasn't really hearing we was hearing Lil Baby's older songs, but the anticipation of build up for it. I mean, for a minute, people were already saying that Lil Baby asking questions, that Lil Baby fall off.
Right.
So with that being a conversation, I think you got to play into that a little bit and deliver something that's quality. And yeah, it just wasn't there, man. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I wanted it to be, but it just wasn't.
Well, those type of narratives could either work one or two ways, right? You could buy into the fact that, yeah, I fell off, or you could react in a way that Common did on B and give one of your best efforts. And those moments really kind of show you what you're really made of as an artist. Because when you're riding high, yeah, people can ride the wave or whatever, but when people start to doubt you, that really shows, what you're really made of. And yeah, man, I don't know, man. I think he probably maxed out, in my personal opinion. Jay Short with the Super Chat says, I'm old school, so not super familiar with Lil Baby's music. But my question is, with Kendrick hot right now and Dre and Snoop releasing, what is his market in mainstream right now? Why drop now?
Oh, it's a
Good
good
question.
time to
I do
drop.
think
I mean, he has that young demographic. You know, I would say what that 16 to 24 demographic. You know, like
yeah.
that's who
Has his
listens.
demographic possibly moved on to somebody else? Because that demographic also is, I don't want to say fickle, but yeah, if you ain't dropped in 2 years or whatever, or dropped something that, I mean, let's just be honest. The last thing that he dropped that really made a mark was in 2020.
Yeah,
So for the people who were 16 in 2020, who are 21 now or whatever, have they moved on to another artist?
I mean, what is the other artists? There's nobody in the forefront right now that I'm seeing that's making noise or I'm hearing about. You know, outside of
Playboy?
Doechii. You know, I don't see anybody else from the male side that's really like the new up and coming standout. I'm not seeing that right now.
You know who
Um,
keeps their fan base pretty tight? Tyler the Creator. Playboy Cardi keeps his fan base.
oh, people
Um,
love Playboy Cardi. Yeah,
People love Playboy Cardi, and I don't understand it, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Tyler the Creator, you know, he keeps a fan base, and you know, I think a lot of women have been able to, you know, stake their claim and you know create large fan bases since you know Lil Baby got to popping too. Um, I think Rod Wave, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's a lot of people who've probably jumped in, and let's keep it real. Gunna, Gunna
yeah,
has made music to keep
yeah,
people liking him, you know. So I
yeah.
think that people see what Gunna's been able to do over this time period and dealing with incarceration and court cases and all that stuff. And Lil Baby really doesn't have that excuse. Now, I will say this about Lil Baby: maybe him having to modify his subject matter because of all those things going on might have
Facts.
thrown off some of those things possibly. But you
Yeah,
know,
Lil
I
Baby
think
had the
what this,
streets.
what's
You know,
that?
Lil Baby had the streets, and so when you
Right.
have to kind of deviate from that appeal a little bit, yeah, it does kind of change up your content. Definitely.
I think with this era too, and we just talked about social media. I think music has to be the main thing, right? But I think that with all of the moving parts going on, what you got to do as an artist in today's era, from you know doing social media, doing merch, doing endorsement deals, and all those things, I think that it's tough for them to continue to keep the main thing in the forefront, you know. And I think that a lot of the focus clearly isn't on music. After listening to this album, it's like you weren't focused on music the whole time making this. It's like when you have a term paper and your professor gives you the whole semester to do it. You could tell who turned it in the last couple of weeks or last couple of days before it was due. And that's what this project feels like. It's like, yeah, you kind of just put this together, like you said, contractual fulfillments, but at the same time, this is going to reflect on your discography, and you're missing an opportunity while you're still hot to make some of your best stuff because you're not going to be still hot for a minute. You know what I mean? Forever.
I just think he just needs to, reevaluate, come back, and come with the hits. The hits is what fed him. The streets is what kept it alive. Just come back, make them bigger records. You know, that's one thing that um you can never count somebody away that's in it because you're just always one hit away. You know,
It's true.
unless you totally lost your fan base and the whole industry turned against you, whatever, a hit could, unless that's happened, you're just always one hit away. That's all you need. And I feel like that's what's missing from this album. And get it back, and then, his collaborators, that's another thing too. Of course he was able to get 21 Savage on there. He was able to get, a Young Thug verse. He was able to get Future on there, but um, Dirk's not able to be on the album. There's
Yeah.
certain people, like when things are going on, you kind of have to play it safe in the music. And I don't know. I like Lil Baby. I hope he get it together and able to come back with it. But yeah, man, it wasn't a good effort. Not to me, man.
All right. Well, speaking of hits, did you hear Drake's Fighting Irish?
Yeah, I heard the leak, man. Um, it's cool that he's back rapping. I would say that it's cool that he's back rapping, but I think the thing that's hurting Drake is it's still going to be an issue. And the issue here is that you went from being a person that is now picking the fight or engaging in this fight to now you're the victim. And it's hard to get us to feel sorry for you. Even if he has legitimate points about people who turn their back on him, like LeBron or like DeRozan, those are people, whatever. But why are you rapping to them? These niggas are NBA players. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. He does have a right to voice it. If it's your life, if this is what it is, you have all right as an artist to talk about it. I just think this is the wrong time to play victim right now. And another thing about Drake that is interesting is like this was a leak, and so and it didn't come from you. So I just kind of find it interesting when certain music come out. It's not like directly him that's dropping it. YouTube still took it down, but it's like it's interesting. You know what I'm saying? I'm like these type of things are why it comes across that I'm a Drake hater, because these are the things that make me dislike him. Like shit like this. So it's like I'm just I don't know, man. I never seen a guy just consistently make the wrong moves back to back, and that's what's going on here, man. It's
No
just
pun intended.
yeah, it's like this stuff is messing with him mentally, man. It's like it's just like
Well,
man,
yeah. I mean,
uh,
yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem strategic at this point. It seems like frustration. I think the record's cool. I think individual songs and all that stuff right now, I mean, the time for those things are over. Drake needs to come with a project. I don't know what's going on with him and Universal. It appears, though, that, he feels a way about the fact that Universal's clearly putting their support behind, the person that tried to take him out the game. And he feels a way about that. I don't know, man. This record was cool, but we need. So I said, "What's up with my resolution?" I don't know, man. We got a signal issue. Let's see. Hold on, let me check this out before. I think I'm good right now.
um,
What's up? Go
you,
ahead. Let
you
me
know
fix it.
the mistake with this all is, what this that little freestyle, whatever it was, what it gives off. It gives off what he tried to do on the heart sits, and why people was like, oh, he's done. It gives me those
Right.
same vibes. I think when he dropped that record, No Face, that's what you need to be on. That wasn't a
Yeah,
bad the record with Playboy Cardi. Be on
yeah.
that and continue just making your dope music and put out that. That was the energy. You know what I'm saying? But you go back to this, is like this again, like you're playing the victim.
So he
And
can't sound hurt out here.
yeah, it doesn't come across well to the listeners after everything you being a victim, man. It 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 wasn't good, bro. You went from beating your chest, and then you being the guy that's going toe to toe with Kendrick, and and then like I said, when he tried to do the heart sits, and then when he No Face was a good effort, but when you come back and do this again, it's reverting back to what people was off you for. Like that was so pivotal in your beef, you know.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. That's why he needs a full project, because you can get a balanced attack in that level on that level, right? You can have ranges of songs. I mean, for an artist like Drake, who clearly works at a high pace and a high level, I don't understand why he hasn't dropped a full effort. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's issues with the label. I don't know what's going on, but you would think that, Drake could drop a full length effort, even if it was a surprise mixtape with like 10 joints at a whim. You know what I mean? And come with some really, really strong records. But I agree. He has to come from a position of power, because all this Heart Part 6 type stuff, that's not gonna
Yeah, man. I mean, you on there, you dissing the guy who you got tattooed on you. It's like, like, come on, man. Like, and I don't know, man. It's just like, his way of trying to redeem himself is falling, bro. It's not looking good, man. Like I've never really seen Drake drop something and you go to the internet and people are really clowning him for it. Like I've never like that's crazy. I mean, yeah, people did kind of the same on the Heart Six when he tried to drop that, but this one when he dropped this and people were talking about it, I'm like the memes and the stuff. I'm like, oh my god, like yeah, I don't know who his advisors is or who you need to get yes man out of his circle, man, because this wasn't it. I don't care if it was a leak or not. That came out for a reason. You make sure that it reached out there for the reactions or whatever. It just wasn't it, man. Um,
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought it was cool. I don't think it was something that was going to stop traffic or anything like that. But you know, I again, he's going to have to come with a full length effort because right now Kendrick's just running away with it, and Kendrick dropped GNX. I mean, it is what it is.
yeah.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah, man. Hey, dog, like go back to the board, man. But you know, it's getting uglier because you battling with your label, man. So who knows when we're gonna get some real quality music, you know, because that puts you in a tough place. You're battling with the label. You don't technically want to drop anything that's too much bigger to have them make more money off you, right? If you really truly suing them for what you're suing them for and battling with them, it puts them in a hard place dropping music wise and then you know, like I said, the subject matter, the best thing you can do, stop playing a victim, man. Just like do what you need to do. Get busy. So yeah, I think you stuck, Mike. But um, yeah, that Drake stuff was kind of weak to me. I'm just gonna be totally honest with you. That Drake stuff was weak. It was a poor effort. We could have lived without him dropping that, or like I said, putting it out and as a leak record or whatever. It's just and then the fact that like Universal took it down or wherever it was from, that's even funnier. But it's just like, yeah, this was weak, man. It was cool to get the people in again, but it was weak.
yeah. Like I said, Drake needs to come with some more songs, and you know, then we can really decipher. But yeah, these one offs, it's not working. It's not helping, and Kendrick is running away with it. It is what it is. Um, you heard about the Young Noble record dissing Nas, right? Young Noble from the Outlaws dissing Nas. Everybody is, sending me the record, and they're wondering if Nas should respond.
Absolutely not.
Listen, man, we had this conversation offline,
Yeah.
and I don't know if Leroy's in the chat right now, but Leroy seems to believe that anybody could challenge anybody, and anybody could just um, go bark on somebody, and and see if they can get this spot. I mean, look, the track's not bad. I guess my question is the timing, right? Why now? Why Nas? Nas is so non-problematic, minding his business, living his life, living his best life, making great music, doing business. I don't think Pac would even sanction this in 2025. This looks like a clout chase, and we got to be careful when it comes to these battles and these diss records. I know when the game went out there and put forth a challenge to Eminem, it looked like a clout chase for people. Um, I viewed it different, and that's not me, not being an Eminem fan. I think that Game is somebody who has put in the work, who comes from the Aftermath Interscope camp, and if he felt like challenging somebody from a skill set standpoint, like Eminem, because he feels like he's better than him, I don't really have a problem with that. But I also don't have a problem with the fact that M didn't ever respond either. Well, I do kind of have a problem with it, but um, I think that's a little different than what this is. This is coming from a place where you could have said all of these things many of times. And it sounds like you want a response from Nas. Now, if Nas were to respond, and I don't know what, mental space Nas is in 2025 as far as rap battling and things like that. But the Nas that I know on the mic, if he responds, he's gonna blow this guy away. Like, but again, it's a lose-lose situation for him because we expect that, right? Like, if Nas responds, how is that a win for him?
It's not. That's why he shouldn't respond. uh I just this is the thing that I hate about like the older artists and stuff getting on these podcasts. It's like you're getting on here continuously talking about stuff from that thing, from that era or whatever, and you get caught in it. We're in 2025 and you're still wanting to dispel whatever was said about that meeting with Pac and then when they encountered each other in the club. We've heard Snoop tell the story, we've heard Jungle tell the story. I mean, it's just like, why does it fucking matter now? You know what I'm saying? Like they piece it up. It was the result was they piece it up and it went the way it went and whatever.
Right.
At this point, bro, like you want to rehash some stuff from like what 30 years ago? Like
Yeah,
what are we
at this
talking
point, it
about here?
doesn't
How are we
matter. You know what
responding?
I mean? Because you
It's
know what? Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. We talking about 30 years ago, like you said.
yeah, man. Like what are we talking
1926, literally 29 years ago now. And at the end of the day, if they didn't piece it up then, chances are at 2025, they would have pieced it up by now. There
It's just like,
was no real problem.
yeah, man. It's like that's that stuff, man. It's like it's cool because we've heard from Outlaws on interviews. Like I see you know them do stuff with Art of Dialogue and stuff. The remaining members are still alive. It's not many of them still alive, unfortunately. But we haven't really seen Young Noble pop out and do interviews. So, it's cool if you're talking about whatever your story, that era and all that. But if this is your focus, if this is what you want to do, this is the stuff that make me look like at the older cats, like this is clown shit, man. Like you can
And
go
to
in there and
diss
say, hey, this is how
somebody
the
like
story went.
Nas,
Yeah, man. It's just
like
like,
somebody who's so positive, like
but
been
you
such
and
an
then you went out to the way
ambassador
to
for
diss them.
culture.
You really went to the studio and recorded this, like after what you said in the interview, and it's kind of like, man, this is I don't I don't know, man. It's to me, it's not even worth a discussion. It's this clown shit. It's clownery,
It's
man.
scumbag.
Is what is stupidity, man. I hate when these type of things happen and the people allow this on our platforms for like likes and views and stuff, or get um just to get like that viewership or whatever. I think you have OGs on here playing themselves and stuff, man. It's just it's corny, you know.
Look, at the end of the day, it's not fair to Nas or anybody else who's in the top whatever conversation that somebody who doesn't have the classics that person has, doesn't have the notoriety, or didn't put in that level of work, has the ability to go out there and clout chase off of someone else's name, right? So for that purpose, right, I feel like to diss somebody like a Nas, you gotta at least be in a top 10, 15 conversation or have something to lose. Because, from a credibility standpoint, I'm sure most of the MCs out there that are in the top of the top wouldn't even risk their reputation by going out there talking ill of somebody unnecessarily like a Nas. You know what I mean? And it just won't stop if you respond to people who do these things, who
You don't stop, Mike. You froze. Know what's going on your end, man.
it
Oh,
has to be some
are you
sort
back?
of parameters to this, man.
Yeah.
Jay Short Super Chat says disappointing from Young Noble. There's a market right now for '90s artists, and he should be putting his attention to record recordings with the Outlaws. If Quick and MC8 can do music together, boom, yeah.
I mean, he has a point, man. Like, I'm not about to beef with you about some shit from like in the '90s, early '90s about that. Especially if this your guy, and then the other guy they pieced it up. I'm definitely like, come on, man. What are we talking about now, man? You have the
At the
right
end
to
of the day, man, if you feel like the story was inaccurate, will you go out there and tell the story from
tell your
your vantage
story.
point?
Now you
And,
doing
and
record.
that's how I feel about even with these, with the hip hop pioneers and people saying the 50-50 and all that. All right, well, if you disagree with it, put together your own documentary, man. And then, you know what I'm saying? And folks can do their own fact checking from there. But to go out there and diss Nas, man, is just some clout chasing shit. And it's unfortunate, and I hate that the younger generation gets to see the older generation acting like this. But somebody like Nas, man, like we even saw when MC Shan went out there speaking ill of Nas, and then pieced it up after he saw him in his face, and it was nothing like that. But I don't know, man. I think that getting that level of attention can be very dangerous, and I think that's what a lot of these platforms on YouTube have created for some of the lesser known rap artists of a certain era who were
I'll
around
just say
these
older
stories.
artists. I'll just say older artists that had their time or whatever. It's like it started off with them telling their story and then some untold stories, and then when they start becoming reoccurring guests, you start seeing where it starts to get corny. And I like Noble. I like the interviews that some of the outlaws have done and everything. It's just like when it gets to stuff like this, it's kind of like what we talking about?
Right.
This is corny, man. It's not a good
I'm gonna,
look.
I'm gonna be real with you, bro. I didn't even get it. I didn't even listen to the whole record. I couldn't listen to the whole thing, man.
Corny,
It was just wrong. Like,
yeah, I'm good on that, man. We
look,
actually talked about this longer than what we should, to be totally honest with you.
but yeah, I mean that's how I feel about it. And again, I ain't saying anybody in the rap competitive spirit should be ducking or fade or whatever. But I also feel that certain people are at a certain height and they put in too much work for somebody who doesn't have that level of, I mean, let's just keep it real, work, talent to just come at them. And what do we expect here? We expect a real back and forth.
I mean,
You
I
have
don't
all this time.
I don't think it has nothing to even do with their success, of a group or them individually. I think it has everything to do. It's damn it. It's like what 30 years ago, 29, 30 years ago, and like man, Nas has overlapped progressing 5 times over. It's kind of
Yeah,
like I, I'm not gonna go back and like have this be a thing of something that happened in the early '90s, bro. This is just what are we talking about, bro? Like, if you couldn't get over it, I did. If that's what your thing is, that's your story. Hey, man, have your story by any means. Best wishes to you, brother. But like,
yeah.
what are we talking about now, man? It's just,
Just tell your side.
man, it's
But
stupid.
no, I don't think Nas should respond. But if he does in a roundabout way or whatever new record that he might have brewing, and throw a little shot here and there, I'm with that. But I mean, it was just too much. I mean, the record's like 7 minutes long, right? It's just too
Yeah,
much.
I just, yeah, that's not it for me, man.
You think Kanye's dropping Bully this year?
I'm gonna ask a question. This is a question for the chat as well. Do you guys anticipate Kanye's music still?
And when we were talking about social media and people who have lost some steam social media wise, I thought about Kanye. I think Kanye without social media, and I mean, he doesn't do social media too much, but he does media, and he's very outspoken, and whenever he does say something, it travels everywhere. I think he lost some people with the Harriet Tubman comment. I think he lost some people with the slavery as a choice statement. And obviously, he's such a great artist and has such a great fan base that he still has a massive amount of fans. But I do think that the grace that an artist like a Jay-Z would get in this point in his career, Kanye's not getting that benefit of the doubt. He's not getting that anticipation either, because I think he's pump faked so many times when it comes to his releases that it's getting to a point where people are kind of like, I believe it when I see it, or for some people, just don't even care anymore.
You know what? I think Nas. I mean, I'm still on the Nas shit. I think Ye is only as good as his collaborators at this point. And the reason I say that, I haven't liked the project from Ye since Life of Pablo. And even on Life of Pablo, you could hear the influences of who's writing for him at that time. You could hear Chance and that. You could hear Travis. You could hear some things in there that's like you could kind of hear his. It's glaring that you could hear his influences in the music. He ruined Donda. Donda with him playing around with the structure of it and one half and them taking songs off and putting other ones on, it kind of ruined that for that album. And Donda could have really been a good album if we slice it in half and keep
Yeah.
certain songs or whatever. But I shouldn't have to do that. We'll listen to a record. Is you
Well,
deliver it?
that's his job as the producer and as the artist.
Yeah. So it's like Kanye has been disappointing as far as his efforts in music. And I don't really like the records with Ty Dolla Sign, and I like Ty Dolla Sign. I just don't have I don't get the soul. I don't get the feeling with Kanye's music no more. So it's never been the pump fakes because it's crazy how he could say whatever he wants to say. And people are still, there's some people that still are checking to go see it. They're going to, when he does, he's selling out these arenas and stuff when he does these listening sessions
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So there's people that still listen to Kanye regardless of what side he's been on, regardless of what he says. It's just that you just have to deliver the music at this point for him. I think he has a real cult following that they support him no matter what. I just feel like the music just hasn't been great for me.
And I think those things have affected the anticipation. Ill Magic with the super chat says, I don't trust Ye's music like I used to. I think that's a very valid point. I'm gonna get to that in a second. Jay Short with the $20 super chat showing love. He says, you guys know I rep the West Coast on here and have, but I'm tired of all of the whole death row stories from the bitter West rappers. Just let it go. Build your own vehicle legacy. Even hated even hated Death Row East. Shout out to
Yeah,
him.
these
What
folks,
I was gonna say though,
no.
trust is a big thing when it comes to an artist like a Kanye West or an Outkast or even a Kendrick. Like when you have developed this level of trust with your listener and they know that whenever you come with a product, it's gonna be dope. Like you can't take that lightly, and I think Kanye has is going to make the better album. People don't have that level of faith anymore. Like at one point in Kanye's career, and rightfully so, if he said he was going to drop an album, it was automatically album of the year contender. I don't think people feel that way anymore.
Yeah, man. The talk has become bigger than the records. You
Ill
know,
Magic says, "Can you explain why Pablo is a classic?"
I don't think Pablo's a classic.
I think Pablo's a good album.
I think it's a good album though, but it's not a classic to me. I think that's why I said his last best effort to me musically was Life of Pablo. And I didn't like anything else that comes after that too much. Like I said, Donda could have been great, and I feel like he ruined Donda with him playing with placement of tracks and stuff. But like, yay, man, like the stuff that he says has outweighed the quality of music. Usually, when Kanye gets out there and stick his head out and say stuff, he comes with quality, great music,
Yeah.
and that's not there. Like I said, I think he's only as good as the collaborators he has that's working with him at this point in his career, and it's glaring. Even when I try to listen to Vultures and I heard certain things that he say, I'm like, come on, Kanye, that's not you. It's hard
Man,
to certain stuff
yeah,
because
and I do think that, for all of the things that he says, that he's Walt Disney, he's Steve Jobs. And I do believe on many levels, I see where he's coming from. He is a visionary. He is somebody who has changed the game forever in many different ways. But to prove that point in this part of your career, I do think you're going to have to do it with a very minimal amount of collaboratives, and that goes from the pen standpoint, from a production standpoint, because I think he can do it if he locks in. I think that Kanye's biggest issue is being, and this is just me speaking from afar as a fan, he doesn't seem to be motivated. He doesn't seem to be inspired. And honestly, he just don't seem to be focused on music. I just was talking about Lil Baby making the main thing the main thing. I think that Kanye's so focused on everything else. Music hasn't been the main thing in a very long time. And it shows.
I'm a slightly push back on it a little bit. I just think the things that Kanye's talking about at this point, the regular everyday people don't give a fuck about. We
Well,
don't
he's
want to.
unrelatable as well. And that was one of his biggest
Yeah,
strengths early on in his career. He was very relatable.
relatable, and
Not
he
at all.
spoke out about certain things that is in grasp of the regular person, right? Um, your project, um, your projects and the gripes that you have now, that's not stuff that regular people give a fuck about. We don't want to hear rich people keep talking about their rich people problems and their battle with the giants and all that stuff. Like that's where you kind of lose the people, and I think that's the problem for Kanye right now and has been for a minute is like the stuff that you're talking about now is just like it's hard for the regular person to give a fuck about or relate to, and
Well,
then, like I said, the
I
music just
think
hasn't been good to me.
I think that's the challenge, though. I think that you have to figure out a way to relate those things to the everyday person, right? And if there are ways to actually do that, I think when I hear some of the stuff that Kanye speaks out about, whether it's the bank account thing or whatever, it's one of those things where it's like if they could do this to me, imagine what they could do to you. But again, he has to translate that message, and I think he hasn't done a great job of translating any messaging to his core in a very long time. He might have a lot of he has a broad base of core fans. You got core fans from 808s. You got core fans from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. You got core fans from all over the place, but he has to find a way to pull all of these things together and make it relatable for the people who fuck with Kanye West, the artist. Jay Short with the super chat says Kanye doesn't want to admit to himself that he made his best music with the common and that type of vibe. I guess with common and that type of vibe. He keeps trying to make music with the cool kids from the block, and he's just not one of them. What do you think about that? You think that he's trying to make too much of modern things and not falling back on some of his core ethics?
Hell no, because Kanye always came with something that was before its time. Like
Yeah.
when we get to the graduation, the sound of that, like he's always been kind of ahead of the wave. When we look at My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and how he put that together, all his stuff has always been kind of ahead of the curve. That's the greatness about Kanye's music. So I don't think it's about it being more current. It's just that you can't go back to what you were talking about because we seen what your rhetoric was outside of the music and what you were supporting and the things you say. So you can't go back to what you was doing on College Dropout because we know it's not authentic. We know is BS. You had a chance to do
Unless
that.
he lays it all out there, right? But yeah, it's a lot of things that he can't really walk back. Yeah. And then again, that's losing the connectivity. Black
Yeah.
Wealth and Power, the super chat says Ye needs help with mental issues. Yeah, that
I
could be
mean,
true. But I
what,
think artists
what,
have made great music with mental issues before.
one thing I could say with preparation for this album is you're not hearing too much noise from Kanye. There's not a lot of antics. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of him speaking about saying some wild stuff. It's just like the pictures I've been seeing has either been of him and his wife or him in the studio. And to me, it looks like he's focused on the music. It really does.
What do you
Um,
think about the title?
that's what makes me interested in what the content is going to be about. Because if this is going to be back to you going against the industry and going against whatever and the machines of this that nature, I don't want to hear that. But if it's of something that is of real content and real something that people could feel what you're talking about, it's cool. I like that he's being quiet with this.
I will say this, and we talk about this with Jay Z, like, okay, what's the direction or whatever. I think with Kanye, for the type of artist that he has presented himself to be over the course of 20 plus years now, I think any approach that he takes could be acceptable, right? I think that even if he took a more reflective type of approach on a project, people would be fine with that. I actually would rather him take on that type of approach as opposed to the vulture approach. Partying and having a good time is great. And Kanye's always done that in his music. But I do think that there are a lot of serious things out there that somebody with his type of perspective and his type of insight, if you will, we would like to hear their perspective from. And and I think those are the albums that we're missing, period. And I just wish Kanye would step into producer Kanye mode. And I ain't just talking about making beats, but what he would like to see in an artist and do that, you know, himself. Because that's when he made his best stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's another cool thing about this album coming. I don't know what to expect from it.
Yeah.
And with him being quiet, that actually makes me kind of be more interested in it. But I started off this whole segment with asking, are people still anticipating, a Ye project? Is the anticipation still there? And yeah, I guess
Oh, no.
physically, when people are going to his listening sessions, that says something. When people are really to pay concert prices to go see him do a listening session for some music, you may not ever even see capping on the album. That says something. But I think in where I'm at and the people who I see on the internet and stuff like that, and I'm checking for response or whatever, I don't feel the same anticipation of this or for Kanye as I did in the past. So I don't know, man. I have zero expectations. I have nothing to say about it. It's just like, hey, just let the music speak. I don't want any more antics and stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're saying that because the antics is kind of what we loved him for. It's crazy
Exactly.
that we don't want to hear you speaking against the machine, or whatever, when that was something he was doing early. But it was more of something we could feel, more of something that resonated with us more. And I think the stuff that he's put on his agenda now, I just don't think it's just things that the common people could relate to and like. So it's like, yeah, man, he has an interesting career, man. Like he really
Yeah,
does.
I mean, listen, I don't have a problem with, him speaking out because like you said, that's who he's always been. And when people talk about they want the old Kanye, I'm like, new Kanye is the old Kanye. You just don't like what he's saying now. And I think that that is the gap that needs to be somewhat slimming. Now, granted, he sees the world differently, obviously, than he once did. But I think those are some things to talk about. And I think as an artist, he's one of those few guys that can actually pull off these conversations through his music. Um, I don't expect somebody like Lil Baby to be able to pull that off. But this disconnect between Kanye and the fans, I feel like he's intelligent enough as an artist and as an MC and as a producer to be able to come with an effort that kind of addresses all of these things and puts those things in context and brings back the connectivity. Um, I mean, all the way down to like his individual statements. Some of those statements that came off horrible in interviews, if they were said in a poetic fashion, I don't think people would feel the same way about it. Like even his slavery is a choice statement.
Oh yeah,
Well,
man.
Killmonger said something very similar to that on Black Panther, and people thought it was poetic.
I think
And
he was with him being like criticized for that was a victim of him not really preparing his point. What
exactly,
you know?
exactly, exactly. And I
Yeah,
think that when you look at artists and musicians, that even Jay, man, like when you listen to Jay in an interview or whatever, and look at him when he was with Roger Goodell, that was him saying stuff like we're past that with Kaepernick kneeling or whatever. It comes across really bad. It's very blunt. But if Jay were to put that in a rhyme form, it would have been dressed up so much better where people would have understood what he was saying. And I think that that happens to artists a lot. And I will applaud Kanye for the fact that he will put himself in these tough spaces, answer the tough questions, and even sometimes look like an ass for it. But I do think it's gotten to the point now where, he needs to put these in a form where they're digestible and where he's able to articulate these points, like you said, better.
yeah. I mean, and it always came across as well in the music.
Yeah,
Outside of it, he's never really been too great at articulating his points too well. Because even with the slavery was a choice, when I first heard it without context, I was like, this sounds crazy. But then when I go back and look at it, I'm like, I get what he's saying. It went
but
over
you
so
can't say
hard.
that.
It
Right?
felt so bad, dog.
It's
So
no way to say that and it not be offensive. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says Ye could master Killer Mike's formula if he focused on it. Make mature, age appropriate songs that are also bangers. Now, I do kind of agree with something that Jay Short was kind of alluding to. I do think that Kanye could be leaning to the youth a little bit too much as opposed to collabing with the youth and, kind of mentoring on that level too. Because even with, I think, again, the best marriage I can think of here is when we talk about Nas working with Hit Boy. I don't feel like Nas just totally was like, yo, I'm gonna try to be one of the cool kids with Hit Boy. They met in the middle, and I don't think that that's happening when Ye is collaborating with the youth. It sounds like he's trying to do what they do and try to live in that world. But I get that because he's a producer, so he's accustomed to kind of going into artists' worlds. Anyway, I praised him for doing that on B. So yeah.
And another thing about him not articulating his points well, it's bad when you don't articulate it well and you kind of dumb down on it a little bit more, you double down on it, then it makes it real bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I hope it's a successful album. I hope it's something that I like listening to, but I don't have no anticipation on it.
It will be success. I
Patience.
don't know. The last ones haven't been as successful.
Yeah, I
I
can't
will
say
say that
but when it
we
drop out.
know that this motherfucker knows how to do a rollout. Now, if anything, he can make it where this is the only project people are talking about for that week or whatever. He can
He can
go
make
do
noise. I give
Yeah,
it
he
to
can
him.
go do a Drink Champs interview and stop everything. So we'll give him that. But I
Yeah,
just hope the
he
music
knows how to make noise.
matches. And I think the theme of this show tonight is like make the main thing the main thing. Like there's so many things that artists have to deal with in this universe of the industry and entertainment now. But the music seems to be the last thing that people focus on. And we're the listeners, we're the ones that are losing. Black Wealth and Power, the super chat says, we need Chipmunk Soul Kanye back. I grieve his loss. I think if we got Chipmunk Soul Kanye, people would say he needs to change up his style. This is old. This is dated.
No,
But
like I even like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy Kanye. Hell, Yeezus, he was talking about the things that was kind of above the common people stuff, but the way it was formulated on that, you could even feel that. When I'm
yeah,
listening to New Slaves on there and I'm listening, like Yeezus sonically may sound crazy when you listen to it then, but now it's
blood on
really
the leaf.
Yeezus, yeah. Yeezus is
Yeah.
yeah, man. Yeezus was actually better than what I gave it credit for when I first listened to it.
Oh
First
yeah, he
listen.
was taking it there lyrically. And
Exactly.
I will say this: if Bully comes from that type of approach, I'm fine. But see, the thing is, man, like you said, I don't know what to expect because I don't want to say I don't know the man. I just know what I see. He doesn't seem to be in a happy-go-lucky type of place in life, so I can't really expect to get gold digger, or, you know what I mean, or
I didn't see
even
it
power
look like
or something like I can't expect that. I'm thinking more of a serious tone. The album's called Bully, and if he's coming from a serious standpoint, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of system talk.
I don't really see him looking like he's in a bad space. Compared to other years, he looks focused to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not much that's been seen of him, but it doesn't look like he's in a bad space at all. I don't know what to expect from it. And like I said, there's certain things that's even hard to go back to because even when he made Yeezus, you didn't have these comments that you made like now out there. Like
Yeah,
he was saying crazy stuff. He always said crazy stuff, but it wasn't things like now that you can't walk back. You know. So yeah, hey, I'm interested in what Rowdy takes. I'm interested to see how the sound is gonna be. That's most importantly, most important to like the projects is the sound for Kanye. Like I said, I didn't
right.
like Voices. I didn't like I didn't like these records with Ty Dolla Sign. So I don't know. We'll see if he's moving the needle or what he's talking about. But like I said, every picture I've seen, if it's not with his wife, it's been of him surrounding and being in the studio. So it looks like he's ramping up for something. He's been quiet. We'll see if around the project would he come with something else with that is controversial and all that shit. We'll see. But Yeah, I have no expectation.
2025, man. We're gonna see, man.
Yeah.
Lord
Fact.
with the super chat says Will Smith and Joyner snapping. I gotta check that out. Do you think? All right, we talked about how social media can hinder an artist. What hip hop artists, or what in hip hop in general, do you think social media has um, benefited? Like, what artist has been the biggest
Oh,
beneficiary, you think, of
a
social
lot
media?
a lot of these newer artists. I mean, social media is the reason why people like a Boss Man D-Lo or Ice Spice or even certain like when that TikTok wave pop, and you only are hearing snippets of like few seconds of what the song is, and that's the stuff that everybody's dancing to and whatever, and that translates into the music, to the radio space. I mean, if it wasn't for that type of stuff going on, we wouldn't have a Glorilla, we wouldn't have an Ice Spice, we wouldn't have a Boss Mandilo, even early Cardi. You know what I'm saying? Like, social media is a gift and a curse, and the reason why I say that, the gift is you can go viral, you could strike gold and become hot just off social media. So there's like, even if your stuff is not even of par of being quality, I'm looking at, one of the Ball brothers, Jello. I'm looking at his record circulating like it's
This
crazy.
track is fire.
People are having fun with it and everything, but it's like you see what the internet does now. Just imagine if it's a hot record and it does that. You know what I'm saying? We seen that with F and we seen like social media has
Dolce,
propelled
that's a good one.
yeah, and gave them a form of pushing their music, marketing, making people aware of them and whatever. But it also hinders in a way because it kind of could make hip hop look clownery. It could also make hip hop look gimmicky. It could also make hip hop look just bad in the eyes of people that already despise hip hop. But I think it does a crazy balance of good for artists as far as setting them up where they have an opportunity that they probably would have never had before. But I also
Lord
think the
with the
bad
super chat
is
says Enes Cosmic Care Freestyle. Gotta check that out. Go ahead, my bad.
but the bad is sometimes what displays come from that as well. I see the same thing that helped Cardi is one of her biggest like detriments to her right now, and that's her being in the comments arguing with people, doing videos arguing with people and stuff like that. But people say, "Oh, she needs to stay off the internet," but it's like that's kind of hard when the internet's who made this person, you
Yeah.
know. So it's like
Hey,
there's good and bad. There's definitely good and bad to it. And like how we said earlier, when we're looking at artists like a Game or like Ti, OGs, that stuff that we respected had certain images that was like, hey, they at the time they went. Social media has also kind of hurt those images that we grew with these people of knowing. It's like we seen certain artists and certain people of times that we respected kind of get on have social media kind of like make them look clownish. They go out there and go outside the character or the true character we never knew. And it
right.
kind of just make them look corny or look lame. And it's just like, man, bro, it's like it has such a gift and a curse at the same time. It's like, you know,
Well, let's look at somebody like Ice Spice, because you're right. I think Ice Spice highly is beneficial, a beneficiary, excuse me, of social media and the internet age. But if you want to talk about, I mean, as far as like getting out on social media, she doesn't really engage in social media like that. Like, and I guess it's different for her because, she's a, nice looking woman, is able to kind of just post pictures and things like that. But still, she had a viral hit. She had a viral moment. I think she's been able to take advantage of her viral moment. I do feel like her viral moments have peaked, if you will, unless she changes some things up. But again, people like her and even the baby, we're gonna talk about the baby. I think that it's kind of detrimental for them to change up what the internet was able to gravitate to them for. We're seeing that with Boss Man D'Lo too. It's like I'm gonna approach things in a similar way because this is what works. This is what's been working for me. And long term, how beneficial is that? How do you turn that internet buzz into something that is a long lasting career? Have we seen that yet?
for some people, it parlayed them into other opportunities and they kind of like sabotage themselves with things that they did. Like the baby helped The social media helped people like the baby. You know what I'm saying? But we also see like from after what he said on Rollout, how people on social media has kind of helped to driving that down as well. Like for some people, I think it's how you approach it and staying on that. Like if social media help propel your career and you want to be direct to your consumers as far as like uh making them feel like they could talk to you, whatever, it's cool in the beginning. But I also feel that's what keeps you from having a true celebrity status. Because like when we look at this era, really, there's really no the when I hear the kids talk about who their celebrities are to them now, it's now like video game streamers and stuff like that. Like they
Well,
like artists, but it's like we don't have artists that are looked at as celebrities because it's like you feel so accessible to them. You
I
feel
was
like
gonna say, I don't think we have platforms anymore that make
yeah,
artists seem larger than life. Like
no, it's
TRL did a great job of making artists seem larger than life. 106 and Park did a great job of making these people seem like they were up here and everybody else was down here. And I mean, now like what's gonna do that? Because everybody's on the same platform now, pretty much.
it's like whenever you can get on social media and you could directly message an artist that their music suck, it's like
And then get
and
a response.
they actually respond to you. Like, come on, man. It's like I said, there's so many good and bads off social media. It helps us, it spreads the awareness. It introduces us to some artists that we probably would never heard or had the opportunity to hear. It's helped them push business. It helped them, propel. Even if we don't like the music, right? Even if we don't like the music, it still gave these people platforms, made them bigger. Like, for example, Sexy Red to me is a product of social media because
Hmm.
social media could have made a breaker when she dropped that record. Social media could have been like, "This is ass. We ain't listening to this." Instead, they loved it. They fuck with it, and here we go. Birth Sexy Red. Here we go. We got Sexy Red actually having a real rap career right now.
Yeah,
And
she's been a big beneficiary of social media.
yeah, and we have social media, but I think the social media, like I said, there's a gift and a curse. But I think the bad thing has been labels looking at the impact of social media and actually signing them thinking there's going to be longevity to it. And that's why I think the biggest problem is like if you sign some social media stars or whatever songs that made it off there and they actually end up working out and they're dope, cool. But like we've seen people that we know is not going to be sustainable, and social media is just trying to capitalize on their popularity. I mean, these labels are trying to capitalize on the popularity of what they're doing on social media, and
Hmm.
that's we're starting to get these artists that come and go. I mean, the labels have to be held responsible for this bullshit as well. But social media is going to social media. Like it can help propel you, and it can help hurt you too. The same people that propel you is the same people that can hurt you. It's just like an odd thing with how it works. It's like with most businesses or most artists, you want to have a social media presence. And you have some artists that do have social media, but you don't see them tweet. They'll probably have somebody that puts stuff out for them or whatever and here and there, but they're not the ones that's really entertaining the peanut gallery and making it so accessible to them or getting on
They
platforms
shouldn't be.
shouldn't. It just, I don't know, man. It's such a gift and a curse, and it's nice to some people. Some people can get on there and talk to the people and be direct and don't play themselves, and others they can. And another one of the biggest things I hate about social media is it could rehash a lot of shit that people wasn't thinking about that are biased to certain negatives. Um, Something can come out about somebody and nobody is really looking at it, and then people are going and deep diving and taking clips and old pictures and digging up stuff from there and don't know
Right.
the context. It probably wasn't even live at the time, know the context of it, and it paints a whole narrative about people and stuff like that. So the fact that social media could really it has no loyalty. It has no loyalty. We're seeing what they're doing with Drake, and they're acting like, hey, social media, y'all love Drake. You guys were one of the biggest proponents of his career, and now I see when the things happen, oh man, the memes and the things going against Drake. Like I said, the same thing that builds you, the same thing that can hurt you. So it's
Jay,
just we seen Drake utilize social media in his beefs. So it's like we know how important it
yeah,
is. You know,
he's used it on both ends. Jay Short with the super chat says Snoop used social media to his advantage. Outside of Pac, he
Greatly.
may be the biggest icon of hip hop, but he used it to make himself more relatable.
Mhm.
He was big before, but now he's a pop cultural phenomenon. OG Weston with the super chat says social media hurt Ross. He's a CEO now, for sure.
I
Um,
kind of agree with it gradually starting to hurt Ross now. you know, at first Ross looked cool on social media, and then it's kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, yeah. Some people, man, the same thing that can help you and propel you is the same thing that can hurt you. Unfortunately,
Super Duper sent us this this top 15 hip hop songs all time list. It's from a website called singersroom.com. And again, you know, people have all kind of top hip hop songs lists all time. I actually got a top 50. I didn't really put them in order, but I got 50 songs. Anyway, it made me think like, well, first of all, the stuff that's on this list is really interesting. I'm gonna go through the list, but it really made me think what makes for a great all-time hip-hop song. I mean, we're 50 plus years into the genre. I guess from a recording standpoint, you know, let's look at 79 with Rapper's Delight. So that's gonna be 46 years this year, right? What we need to be able to define what makes an all-time great hip-hop record. But anyway, number 15, In the Club, 50 Cent. 14, All Right, Kendrick Lamar. 13, Sicko Mode, Travis Scott featuring Drake. Interesting. 12, Empire State of Mind, Jay-Z featuring Alicia Keys. 11, All of the Lights, Kanye West featuring Rihanna and Kid Cudi, and more. 10, Stan, Eminem featuring Dido. 9, Cream by the Wu-Tang Clan. 8, Humble by Kendrick Lamar. 7, Hypnotized by Biggie. 6, Lose Yourself, Eminem. 5, California Love, Tupac featuring Dr. Dre and Roger Troutman. 4, Juicy, the Notorious B.I.G. 3, G-Thang, Dr. Dre and Snoop. 2, The Message, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. And number 1, Rapper's Delight, the Sugar Hill Gang.
who
Um,
made this?
it's a website called Singers Room.
So
Go ahead.
I don't like that list.
It's a lot of things I don't like about
Yeah,
this.
I don't like that list at all.
Go ahead. You go first.
It's just like there's some ones on there I can be like, okay, but for the
I
most
see
part,
3 top 15 hip hop
yeah,
songs on here. I see 3.
facts. I was around the same ballpark.
Yeah, I
And
see G Thang, I see Cream, and I see The Message. We got to be real about Rapper's Delight. Rapper's Delight's not a top. I don't think Rapper's Delight. I mean, it's respected, right? But I don't think Rapper's Delight is a top 20 hip hop song all time. That might be an unpopular opinion now, but I feel like if we really look at hip hop for what it is, what it became, I don't think that Rapper's Delight is indicative of any of those things. I think the message is. I
yeah,
think the message really should be viewed as the first hip hop song
one of the
because
most one of the most important hip hop songs of all time. Yes.
it's the one that gave us original production. Because again, I have a problem with the fact that Rapper's Delight, I mean, they sat there and used the Chic loop that came out like months before the record. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was more of a, I don't want to say a niche record, but I'm going to say this. And not the, you know, so people don't think I'm being blasphemous. The people who were doing hip hop in the streets at the time, they didn't like Rapper's Delight. It was too commercial. And it wasn't really indicative of what was really going on at the block parties like that.
You know, I didn't want to go in depth on that. I just would say like, all right, it's the first recorded hip hop record, but when we
That's
have progressed,
arguable, but yes.
yeah, when we have progressed evolutionary wise through music, having that as number one, yeah, I think we need to look at everything holistically and start asking about that. And like how you said, it's important as far as being the first recorded hip hop record that, you know, broke. But I do think the message is actually bigger and more important to hip hop than that is as a
Right.
song, as a visual. Um, yeah, like I don't want to shit on Rapper's Delight. That's not what I'm gonna do. But
Right,
I was
right, right.
just gonna
I
say it's
mean,
not
look, it
it's not
deserves a
on the
spot,
list.
but we've done way more than 20 records that I think should, you know. Well, go
Both are
ahead.
very important though. Like as lovers
Uh-huh.
of hip, both are very important. So I don't want to shit on one. to get my point across. But what I'm gonna say, it's just not number one on my list. But I do think the message kind of hit more important visually and song wise than Rapper's Delight for me. Even though that wasn't my era, I wasn't even born then.
Yeah.
But with me outlooking my history in hip hop and knowing these records, or whatever, I think the message for me is kind of like bigger for me than Rapper's Delight, I would say.
Well, the message, it had that hook, it had that great beat, and we've heard that song be copied so many times over generations. Coi Leray just did it. You know what I'm saying? Puff Daddy and Mace did it, but can't nobody hold me down. Check yourself, Ice Cube. And then not to mention the approach and being very reflective. And hip hop was known to rock the party and all of that, but Melly Mel and other gentlemen on there, they were able to actually speak about the realities of what was going on and still make a jam at the same time. And and I
Yeah,
think that really is what hip hop became. Now, I don't know, man. When I think about some of the all time great hip hop songs, and we can get into what makes a great hip hop record, but sometimes, and I know my previous co-host, he was kind of favoring more towards the artist other than the song, saying it was a superstar league, quote unquote. But to me, when you got records like "The Choice Is Yours" from Black Sheep, that's a top 50 hip hop song all time. You know what I'm saying? Push It, Salt and Pepper is a top whatever all time. Like these are records that can't be ignored, and we got to think about what makes a children's story from Slick Rick, so impressive and stand the test of time like that. And no disrespect to Humble and All Right, but they're not
yeah.
them. They're not.
I'm a Kendrick fan, and I wouldn't put those as being on the top 15. There's other songs that resonate with me Kendrick wise that I would put on the top 15 rather than that. But even that is probably going to be one,
Right.
But
What
like
what Kendrick song do you feel is a possibly top 50 hip hop song all time?
okay, I like the actual Good Kid song with MC8.
Okay.
I think that was really good. You know what I'm saying? The subject matter, the beat, I think that was a dope. But I also think Money Trees was really good too. But when we start talking about on the top 50, there's
Yeah.
so man, it's so when we're talking about 50 years of hip hop, there's so many, man. Because there's
It's so
mainstream,
hard.
there's mainstream hits. Then we have ones that are the impact socially. Like, how can we have a list and not have Tupac's "Dear Mama" on there,
Yeah.
Brenda's Got a Baby? You know, um, they have California Love, which the impact of California Love is amazing. But he had some social records I feel should be on there, like Brenda's Got a Baby or Dear Mama. I like Will Smith's Summertime. That's one of the dopest hip hop records ever put together.
Straight
You
up.
know,
Now, Summertime is a top 20 hip hop song all time. I
perfect
mean,
song. It's a perfect song. You
it
know,
is. It's so perfect that I believe Rakim wrote it. That's how great that record is. And I think even since we're speaking about Rakim, I mean, it's hard to say a record like Paid in Full or Eric B. is President that changed everything is not on a list like that. I don't know, man. And I think even we talk about Run DMC, Sucker MCs, Ice Cube, Good Day. I
Good
mean,
Days,
it's so many.
another flawless hip hop record.
When we talk about flawless hip hop records that were bangers that stood the test of time, the ones that come to mind, like you said, Summertime, Good Day, Trouble T. Roy, when they reminisce over you, A Children's Story, Slick Rick. I think OPP is incredible, and so is Hip Hop Parade. Actually, it would be a
Yes.
debate between both of those. I think that Queen Latifah's UNITY is a perfect record.
Yeah,
Um,
man. And there's some artists that are not as big when you look at it overall compared to some of these others that have records on there. I love Lucchini. The record,
yeah,
you know what I'm
Lucini's
saying?
incredible.
Lucchini's great. You
I
know,
mean, and I'm not saying this, I know it's gonna sound whatever. I mean, I could throw Nas in there too, Jay and Nas.
Hmm.
Do they have an individual song that I could put over Black Sheep's "The Choice Is Yours"? Like, you could get with this, so you could get with that. Like, everyone knows this record. This is a quality all time hip hop
So
record.
here's the thing with that, with you saying that though, Mike. I don't like the comparison with that record with those two, but I
Yeah,
do think if anybody as a collective unit, we know there's real Nas fans. I know it's catalog or whatever, but to the world,
yeah,
I think Nas actually has one of those, and it is "If I Ruled the World." I
yeah.
feel like
I
if I
think If
ruled
I
the
Ruled the World is
world,
a contender.
you know what I'm saying? Um, I think like Jay, he has one that is on there as well, and I think that would be on the blueprint, man. But like I said, with these 50, man, on the
You don't know?
blueprint and the Black album, I think he has one on there as well. But it's like with those artists, bro, I feel like with Jay and Nas, they have a couple. They have a few.
Well, the thing is, I think they gave us a collection of greatness, and it's not like I said, a Dear Mama is something else. Trouble T Roy is something else. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's just a nostalgic thing, but
So
again,
hard to compare
these are
compose album.
hard records to
I
make.
know.
Mom playing tricks on me, like we all, people talk about Sir Mix-a-Lot being a one-hit wonder and this and that. Like,
Belongs to be
I
on that
think
list.
I think it's harder to make that one hit than it is to sustain a career over time. Like, people work their
Absolutely.
whole careers and don't get that one hit like that. People ain't got a
Absolutely.
baby got back like that. People ain't got a Montel Jordan. This is how we do it. You don't like,
These are records that stand the test of time. We 50 years of hip
yeah,
hop. Those records were made and those are still being played today. Like, that's to me, that's what classics are to me. We have our own personal favorites. So lists are always subjective. Remember, I said that in the group chat. I don't like lists because they're always subjective. But there are
right.
some undeniable flawless records, like how we named Summertime or Today Was a Good Day. Those are just great hip hop records. And there's so many. I couldn't even make a top list without people being pissed off about songs. It's like songs, like doing that for artists was hard, but doing that for songs and 50 years of hip hop and even
Very good.
from different eras, man, it's just like I say within this younger era, I guess what a song that would be on that top 50 list would be like Migos Bad and Bougie. You
Yeah,
know,
straight up.
that would be
No,
on
I
that
agree.
list hands down.
I listened to that
So,
record this morning, actually.
yeah,
That
it
record
just
catapulted three different careers, man. Metro to a certain extent. I think Offset became an individual after that verse,
mhm.
and Uzi, and obviously, Quavo. But
So it's like there's some joints, man. I just
I think
like
Crossroads by Bone, the Crossroads
hey,
remix. These are massive records, and it's hard to even justify putting certain records above those if you know the impact of those records and what those records did for certain artists and just for the game. The impact that Bone Thugs and Harmony had on the game moving forward, much of that starts with Crossroads. You know what I mean? Lord with the super chat says flavor in your ear. All right. These are a few, man, that I think, all right, we want to talk about what makes a great record top to bottom.
make it
Obviously,
to
great verses, great production, great hooks. I mean, Slick Rick's a children's story. It has everything. I mean, it has the catchy lines, it has the storytelling, it has the production. Once upon a time, not long ago, it's like people know these records. Like,
and perform it, people still go crazy.
yeah, this ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. Like, anybody knows where that comes from. Slick Rick was a king of those things. I mean, you
Yes.
could put Lottie Dottie on there. I mean,
I was about to say, yeah.
honestly, and so that's why I'm saying, like, we got to really think about if we're talking about song lists, like you said, that's probably the most difficult list to put together in hip hop because you
You
don't
have
really have
no
the
no
real criteria to go on because a lot of that goes on feeling. But I do think that certain songs have proven that they stand the test of time.
Yeah, because there's mainstream artists that we know and love that have joints on there, and there are some one hit wonders that belong on that list too. It's tough, you know.
Yeah.
It's really tough to put together a list like that. But that list, like I said, there's certain songs I can pull from that, like Juicy. I think Biggie Juicy should be on there in the top 50.
You know, I'm more of a One More Chance
I am
remix
too,
fan,
but
and I think
Juicy,
it's just a better song. I
the
think he's
overall
better on
story
there.
is just
What's
like
that?
the overall story and the Juicy and all that. I think I'm a One More Chance remix guy too. Trust me, but I think that Juicy, like the intro to him, that being a song, the first time we
Yeah.
see, like what Puff is doing with flipping that the sample of that with the Hitman and like the content. I just feel like that deserves to be on the list.
Well, honestly, you know, if we want to talk about the legacy of Biggie, I think Juicy is that record because it's that whole ashy to classy thing, right? And I think that Biggie went from the whole grimy guy from Brooklyn to the Don, and Juicy exemplifies that as well. So I'm cool with that. I personally like One More Chance. I think it's the better record, but if Juicy's on an all-time record, I mean list, excuse me, over it, I'm not mad. Now I think Mobb Deep Shook One's Part Two is definitely a top 20 hip hop song
Yes,
all time.
because if we put Cream on there, I feel like we got to put that Mob Deep Shook One's
Oh
part.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, once again, they shook. It ain't no such things as halfway crooks, scared to death, scared to look. I mean, when you got strong hooks like that, and then you got a beat like that, same thing with Cream. Casuals, everything around me. And I think where the 90s records really stand out is they got those verses that the era before them on the hit records don't have to that extent. Now they're snapping in the 80s, but they're kind of lacking off a little bit on the hit records more so than on the B-side records. And I think in the 90s, when you got stuff like Cream, Hip Hop Parade, you know, Shook One's Part Two, like these niggas are going in on these hit records. Same thing with Mom Playing Tricks on Me. And Mom Playing Tricks on Me, man, you got that production, you got the approach, you got the, you know, the schizophrenia part of it, you got the visuals that come along with it, the memorable lines with Bushwick Bill last week, Halloween fell on the weekend. Like, that's a tough record. To me, Mom Playing Tricks on Me is a top 5 hip hop record all time. It's very high.
hey, you guys make sure y'all put your favorites in the chat because I want to see them. I want to see what you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
think as well.
Andre Miller with the super chat says, noticed a few ATG hip hop songs are posted 2000. What is it? ATG hip hop songs are posted 2000. Or post 2000. Oh, okay. Yeah. He's talking about the list that was on there.
This,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like it probably was a younger person that did
yeah,
it, but
because like straight out of Compton, man, that got to be on the list. You know,
it's
it
straight
has
out of
to.
Compton, NWA's best song. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
I'm
collectively, yeah. I mean, they had some joints, you know, after Cube left because I think Appetite for Destruction is like
it's incredible.
that's my
I'm
joint. I ain't gonna lie, but
real
yeah,
niggas don't
straight out of
die. Like,
Compton.
but you know, if we were gonna go there though, and shout out to NWA and everything that they kicked down the door on, I feel like I would lean more towards, you know, G Thing.
I think Snoop Gin and Juice is like should be on there.
And see, I'm a What's My Name fan.
Me
And
too.
obviously,
Gin and Juice.
Fight the Power from Public Enemy. I mean, really, if we're being honest here, I'm okay with Fight the Power being recognized as number one or two on a list. Like, I'm cool with the message being number one on anybody's list. Like, the message, if you want to talk, if you want to speak from a foundation standpoint and a pioneering standpoint, the message does everything because it doesn't really have a precursor to it that you could look at and say, yo, they got this from this or whatever. Like, that record is kind of like, you know, just it starts things and it started amongst himself.
Yeah,
But
records that are known worldwide, still to this day, old or new, that still has that impact. Like I say, like Young MC Bust a Move. Come on, we can't take that. We have to place that on the list of top
You
MC.
like
Top,
Busta Move? I don't
Bust a
know
Move
about
is
Busta
one of those hip
Move.
hop songs. Is one of, not, all jokes aside, Bust a Move is one of those songs that everybody knows. It's been scored in movies, commercials.
It is.
It's on there, bro. Like everybody knows
I
Bust a
wasn't
Move.
a big Young MC fan, but I gotta respect the hit making ability. I would lean more towards Baby Got Back than Busta Move, but I see where you're coming from with those. I feel like it kind of had to do all those things, right? Like Summertime is a big hit too, but I
Yes.
just think it's a better song than Busta Move. Like Summertime got the
On the
hook,
list.
got the beat. I mean, what do you think about um Treat Me Right by Chubb Rock?
Mm, does it like all right?
Up snapping on there. 1990, Chubb Rock jumps up on the scene, green and a pocket full of green.
It's just bigger records. Like I feel like Bust a Move was bigger than that.
Busta Move ain't better than that, though. But see, that's when it starts to
We're
get
talking about elements of
subjective.
a dope hip hop records. We're talking all right. So when I think about
All right,
elements for a dope hip hop records, I'm thinking about the hooks. I'm thinking
okay,
about because sometimes it don't even have to be deep content. The hooks, the
right,
callbacks, what
right.
people are list like the things that stand the test of time to me when we make these when we make these type of lists are have these things. They have the hooks, they have the callbacks, they have the quotables, they have the impacts. Like whether we didn't like them or not, it's there. Like I think when they make a list like this, like X amount of years later, they're probably gonna have Cardi's her first record that pop. I think that song is gonna be on that list when we're talking about future or what that generation or above. They will have that Cardi. What the Cardi record is? Bodak Yellow. They're gonna have
Uh-huh.
Bodak Yellow on that list. So
You're probably right.
yeah. So
And
what I'm
then somebody down the line is gonna have Munch on that list, right?
yeah, but no, Bodak Yellow was major. They're gonna
Yeah.
have Bodak Yellow. They're gonna have some Drake records. They're gonna have Not Like Us on there later on. They're gonna have Bad and Bougie on there. But when we're talking about 50 years of hip hop and what we have now, um, we can't exclude things like Bust a Move or no Super Chat. I don't
Rob
want to say
Bass and Easy Rock.
yeah
Shout out to
that.
boy.
You know, it takes two.
Yeah.
Like these are records that are like I said, they're put in movies, they're put in commercials, it's like we can't discredit Vanilla Ice for Ice Ice Baby. You know what I'm saying? Like
You know what? I'm not even
it's-
gonna lie to you. I never liked Ice Ice Baby when I was a kid and people were singing on the school bus and all that. But when I listen back to the record now, it's not as bad as I remember. Yeah. I
people love
remember
those.
Pharrell was on Drink Champs and he was saying that, when he was making Holla Back Youngin for
Yeah,
Bab, he was telling him to rap in the Vanilla Ice cadence. It's like
yeah, yeah.
rolling,
Which is funny
trusting
because how
Peter,
he did it, he was
dashing
right.
and so through. And I'm like, you know what? He did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So
And it turned out dope. And
you
we
know,
didn't even recognize it.
yeah, there's some dope records and people are naming them, man. Like I see somebody that said, "Regulate." Hell yeah, hell
Regulate
yeah.
is definitely a top 50 hip
Regulate.
hop.
Hell, I cannot go against that.
What about
Regulate.
what about Five on it from the Loonies?
Yes.
Yeah, and see that's what I'm talking
Yes.
about. Like there are groups or acts that might have one big record, but some of our biggest stars don't have a record bigger than Five on it, or as notable as Five on it. It's not easy to do. You know what I'm saying? Like what
Man.
stars do is they consistently give you bangers. That doesn't mean that they give you the biggest banger ever. And I think when people put these lists together, they're fishing for these superstar names and forcing them on the list and not really thinking about the songs. You know what I mean? Like you can't do an all-time hip hop list and not put like the Loonies 5 on it. Like you can't. Freaks Come Out at Night's pretty great too. Shout out to Super. Jay Short with the super chat says, "Today was a good day. G thing tonight, straight out of Compton, and I got 5 on it, and Juice. I like
See,
that.
this is a great conversation. This This type of conversation right here makes me feel good because this one we're talking about records. We don't care if the album was nice or whatever. We're just talking about pure songs that stand the test of time. That as a collective, everybody can kind of say, "I can see how you put that on your like." How is that made as one of the best? Like, yeah, there's certain records that no matter what, it was it's you know
Ooh,
undeniable.
want to be a baller? That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a good one. I mean, I think Houdini between One Love, Friends, and Freaks Come Out at Night, they gotta have one. I mean, I guess it just depends on which one you think is the biggest because Friends is a big one.
I think
One
Friends is
Love is a
gonna be
big
that one.
one.
Friends is
Now,
gonna be that one.
what's up? You think
I think
Friends?
Friends is gonna be that one. Yeah, yeah.
You know, my personal
It's my
favorite
night
is
was
Freaks
great
Come
too,
Out at
but
Night. But yeah, I'm okay with Friends being that one. Um, sprinkle me for E40. Is there
oh,
anything in the
classic.
early 2000s that you think fits in that greatest all-time hip hop song mode?
Yeah, and it's gonna be their most commercial things because I think Ti has Bring Them Out. You
You
know,
think Bring 'Em Out to I would say What You Know for Ti if there was one for Ti.
but like when I say bring them out, like my cousin plays football at a predominantly white private school. When they
Hmm.
bring the kids out, like when the football players they're coming out the field, that's the record that they're playing. You
Yeah.
know, when I go to Jaguar games here, they suck this year. Oh my god! But that's another conversation. When I go to Jaguar games, when it gets halftime, whatever, and they're coming out from halftime, is bring them out. You know, um, I'm talking about records that are like it's everywhere. It's kind of like Nelly records. Nelly
Well,
has a
somebody
record,
mentioned Hot in here, and I need to find my list. I'm trying to go through my phone and find it, but
like old
I
list.
was debating between Hot in Here and Ride With Me because I realized that Ride With Me seemed to get more legs than, Hot in Here long term, right? I hear Ride With Me way more now than I hear any of those other records, but Hot in Here was the biggest at the time.
Yep. And Country Grammar was just as Country
Oh,
Grammar
yeah.
was amazing when it first
And
dropped. Like
yes, Jesus Walks
you
is a
have
top.
two. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus Walks is there. That's in the 2000s.
Man, it's so many like I said, man, and this is why it's hard to look at hip hop the way we do now because we can go back and we could have the joy of renaming these albums. Like we just name ones as early 2000s. Like when we start talking about 2010s and stuff like that, and it's just the list that talk of that gets lower and lower. Man, it's sad, bro. It really is.
I think the easiest way to do this, and it's difficult too, is to actually name song of the year for each year in hip hop.
Yeah,
That's difficult to do too, but I think that's the easiest way to actually come together with a all-time list and it be fair, where it's not era bias, if you will. And I
yeah,
think that you
because
can really see the evolution or the reformation of hip hop, if you will, based on what songs are actually placed in that individual year. Now, if y'all see this anywhere else, y'all know where they stole the idea from. But
yeah, because
um,
like man, there's just joints that's undeniable. Whether it was one hit wonders or major artists, there's some people that just had it, man. It's like some
Ja
things
Rule,
when you hear it, it's never gonna feel old to you, man. You can be like, oh man, it takes you back to a place of when you first heard it, and
yeah,
that's the joy that we love about this hip hop shit, man. And it's just like the people in the chat with them, they coming with them, and I'm just like, yeah, like bling bling, Cash Money, come on. But I really think back that ass up for Juvie was like the bigger. That's like
that's
a,
a top 50. I think
that goes
Juvenile
even
possibly
spiritual.
has. I think Juvenile possibly has two, man. I think
Yeah,
High and Back That Ass Up are top
yeah, back that
50 hip
ass up,
hop
man.
songs.
They could play that in the club right now, and the women are still gonna go crazy to back that ass up.
We're gonna be hearing Back That Ass Up for the rest of our lives. Straight
Yeah,
up.
man, that goes in a bucket with Nuck If You Buck and things. What's
I think
crazy?
I had Knuck If You Buck on the list too. I think Knuck If You Buck is a top 50 hip hop song all time. What do you think about Never Scared?
I like Never Scared, man. I was just talking about the
Never
remix of
Scared is important. It's weird.
that's like the resurgence of Ti.
I mean, it was really the introduction for a lot of people to Ti. But yeah, it was technically a
Yeah,
resurgence.
it was like the resurgence of Ti. Yeah, man, it's
Put the
just
likes on there too. I mean, it's important.
somebody gave a good idea, man. Doing it by decade, I think
A
that's a little bit
decade?
more appropriate. Um,
So doing 50 for each decade
yeah.
or 20 for
No,
each
no, like
decade?
some type of thing for each decade. Because like I said, even that 2000, you have joints in the 2010s, you have joints like, we were just talking about 2005. So think about those albums and what came out of those albums in 2005 alone. Because
Right.
How We Do is one of those records. Game and 50, that's one of those records. Hate It or
Okay, well,
Love It, same.
let's take it back to 2005 real quick. So, what would we say based on all those records that we saw earlier in the show? What would be the song of the year for 2005? Is it How We Do?
Ah man, How We Do was major.
How We Do is pretty strong.
How We Do was strong.
Um, I think, all right, Gold Digger was pretty strong too.
We got to get a poll or something going for something,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, we
Yeah,
can do
I'm
that.
loving
Let's
this
see. All
one,
right, well,
man.
we got to get a couple of songs together first.
Yeah, we
All
got to
right,
get a couple
so
songs into this. Okay.
all right, so the albums that we had earlier, we got Trill, we had B, we had the Carter 2. All right, so I don't think any songs on any of those. I mean, Money on My Mind.
Well, what was on the card?
Um,
What was
I
the
didn't really
single?
like the singles on the Massacre, to be honest with you. Like Candy Shop
Yeah,
and all that
I hated
shit.
Kidney Shop. I remember just a little bit from watching BT Uncut.
Wait a minute. Was
No, Disco Inferno from BT Uncut.
oh yeah, that was great. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
Disco
yeah,
Inferno.
yeah.
Wait a minute, was Jim Jones We Fly High '05? Huh.
Ooh, gotta
I
go do
think
the
it may have
research. Gotta go do the research.
Okay. Let's research that real quick. Let's see. We
Okay.
fly high. Oh yeah, we're doing this on live television right now. If it is, it's in the mix. Now, what
It
Kanye
was
song
'06. It was '06.
is '06? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not in there. It just missed it. Oh, Jeezy. Thug Motivation 101's '05. So
I mean, let's see. The Carter 2, I wasn't mad at the Carter 2 singles. Fireman, Hustler Music,
I like
um,
hustle music. It
Shooter.
ain't gonna beat How We Do or Gold
No,
Digger
it's
or
not, but you know,
a Soul
I mean,
Survivor.
his biggest joint is comparatively on the Carter 1 and the Carter 3, which the Carter
Right.
3 is Lollipop. The Carter
Ooh,
1, he had to go DJ.
Stay Fly is '05. I remember that.
Big Timers.
3-6 Mafia. Stay
Oh,
Fly.
okay.
Nuck If You Buck, I feel like is '04. Could be wrong. But I feel like that was '04. Huh. I don't
And
know.
you want to know something crazy around that thing? We're talking about those albums, but this is like, when did Khaled come? When Khaled
We think
started dropping his compilation albums.
I feel like that had to be around the same time.
Because his first
Like
record
oh
was Holla at Me. I think the first record that went big for them is Holla at Me, Baby, with Paul Wall and all them on it.
mm. So wait a minute. When was the whole Paul Wall thing?
Well,
When was Still Tipping?
see if Bun B dropped Trill, then that Texas movement was already going. It was already beginning then. See, man, it's just we have to talk
Yeah.
about eras.
Right. Still
That
Tipping is a top 50 hip hop song all time. Yeah, I said it.
yeah. I actually agree.
Still Tipping's
I
crazy. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think we should do that. I mean, we can do it by decades, or we can do it by individual year. I mean, it's very difficult to do one way or another, but I do think that songs standing the test of time are very important. I think what I did notice about more so the records that I'm talking about from the 80s and 90s, some of those big records had a little bit more I won't say meaning to them, but when you look at a record like A Good Day from Ice Cube or Summertime from Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, like storytelling was important on the single. You know what I'm saying? And a children's story, and it actually helped your record. And you don't really see that, moving forward in the 2000s and beyond when it comes to the singles. It's just all about, kind of getting a catchy hook, getting a dope beat going, and the stories are for the album at that point. So I think that's what kind of gives some of those 80s and 90s songs from a substance standpoint a little bit more of an advantage. Kendrick gave us All Right in well shit, To Pimp a Butterfly turns 10 years this year, I think, right? Damn.
Yeah, man. It's like those
So yeah, All Right's 10 years old.
like I think I don't know if every year we have to I mean every show we have to present a new era what was on that like we could do it like there's somehow man because just listening to this makes me excited bro it make like when I'm thinking about that '05 we're talking about those albums and we're talking about the great songs that came from that man whether we like the album we like the artist now whatever the songs are
Uh-huh.
just unbelievable. I'm seeing this from the chat and I'm loving it like I'm seeing people naming songs or whatever like yo these joints were undeniable man.
Yo, Breathe from Fab was '05. That's a nominee. Jay Short with the super chat says, despite what Mad Max says, because he is in New York, they don't have cars there. In 2005, songs like Riding Dirty by Chamillionaire, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Riding Dirty by Chamillionaire was huge, featuring Crazy Bone. Huge
Man.
record.
So yeah,
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
talk about post
We
two
could do a
thousands,
whole
those
on
joints
'05.
there. Man, post 2000s joints there, 2010s it was joints there. But like I said, when we start now coming into the stuff, like we have some joints that are viral hits, and I don't want of this day and age people confusing viral hits with big records. There's some things that are viral, and they was viral for what they were, and they were big, but it's like I don't think those are the records that stand the test of time, like how these ones that we've previously named.
Well, bringing it back to Lil Baby, right? I think that when you do have artists that have been built up to this magnitude and who are this notable and they're dropping albums, I do think it's important to have a collective effort to make sure that these are the artists that are presenting full bodies of work and, you know what I'm saying, full songs. You know what I mean? And I think when those artists go flat, the game goes flat. And at this point, to me, it kind of starts with the producers. And I know y'all think that, I'm tripping on Missionary and all that stuff and the album, but I think what's disheartening to me is the fact that, okay, if you don't feel it, don't feel it. I'm not going to force anybody to feel anything. You know what I'm saying? I get it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That don't mean anybody's hating. But I do think it's interesting that we're settling for, very skeletal type of production, skeletal song structure. And I think it's also interesting when someone who is as notable and as iconic as Dre and Snoop come together and do something totally different from that. People's first reaction is to just, throw it away. And I don't know. Again, I ain't interesting that when some
You said on Missionary, you start pausing, buddy. I think we both